Today's episode is sponsored by Cruise from the Krushiki Supply Company. Use promo code DBF for a nice little discount on any of your military surplus needs.
All right, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second episode of the Dulce Base Files Office of Information Development. Today, Jason decided to join me, and today we'll be having a conversation on the journalist Michael Hastings. It is a older story. It was big in 2013. However, it's always the circumstances behind what we're interested in are always going to remain relevant. And so we decided it's worth a discussion. So for context, Michael Hastings was a journalist. He worked for the Rolling Stones and BuzzFeed. Again, this is before BuzzFeed is what it is today. And he did a lot of investigative journalism. He did a lot of war correspondence. And most notably, he wrote an article in 2010 doing a profile on the then General McChrystal, who was the head of NATO operations in Afghanistan during the war in Afghanistan.
And I think something interesting to bring up about General McChrystal was that he ran the JSOC, and this is the Joint Special Operations Command, and they are the elite forces that run out of the Pentagon, CIA, that do pretty much most of the killing and covert operations in the world. He was in charge of this. He, in fact, Obama, when he appointed him general, had never met him.
So the profile got General McChrystal a lot of heat because he was very openly critical of Obama and Obama's administration, and he made no point in trying to hide the fact that he was not a fan of his boss. And the article got released, and a general leading a war in a foreign country, completely trash-talking the acting president of the United States, doesn't end very well. And so the very next day he was resigned, or was forced to resign, or pressured to resign, and that led to a lot of enemies.
And to expand further on the enemies that Hastings developed, Hastings once said, whenever I'd been reporting around groups of dudes whose job it was to kill me, one of them would usually mention that they're going to kill me. Hastings wasn't afraid to get himself in situations where, with even terrorists, he would interview terrorists, and in fact, there's discussions where he was talking about how he felt more unsafe around the U.S. politicians and generals because of the things that they could do to him. He literally got taken in a random taxi cab by a warlord in Afghanistan, and he lived. But I think, as we're going to discuss, we believe that the U.S. government killed him as a result of his journalistic exploits.
Yeah, so on top of this profile of McChrystal, which really put Hastings in the limelight in the investigative correspondence world, he was a very, very outspoken critic of the Obama administration. There was a quote in which he said,
Okay, so he enshrines killing people and spying on journalists as the two major tenets of his national security state. I think this is outrageous.
And so to expand a little more on the point where Obama didn't know much about the general he was hiring, this is a quote from an advisor to McChrystal, and it was a 10-minute photo op. Obama clearly didn't know anything about him, who he was. Here's the guy who's going to run his fucking war, but he didn't seem very engaged. The boss was pretty disappointed. It's just pretty interesting that somehow this guy who ran the Black Ops arm of the Pentagon, and who Obama had never met and really didn't know much about, is now the general of this war that many countries are involved in. It's kind of crazy, like, that somebody has more power than the president, and he's not elected for this job.
Yeah, and the most powerful military leader operating outside the United States doesn't even know the president.
Yeah,
they just don't know each other. That's so with this General McChrystal profile, this was back in 2010. This is 3 years before Michael Hastings' death. So this isn't necessarily what caused his death. It definitely caused a ruckus within the bureaucracy. It definitely caused strife. This is what most likely put the target on his back, but this is not the event that made whoever did this pull the trigger yet.
So another one of his reporting pieces that kind of pissed off the deep state, the Pentagon, was his reporting on the Bergdahl family. Bergdahl was a soldier. Basically, the gist of this Bergdahl story is that he was a soldier who went AWOL, and the U.S. government wouldn't do anything to help get him back, but the U.S. government was very happy to retrieve CIA Blackwater mercenaries who had killed civilians, and they just left this guy in the dust, and they wouldn't help him. And Michael Hastings really felt strongly about these kind of issues and the U.S. military just leaving soldiers out in the dust, and he wasn't afraid to talk to the families and the soldiers about this. And the government didn't like that. He dove deep and found these gritty issues, and the FBI actually opened. They say that they were never investigating Michael Hastings, but as it turns out, they have through FOIA requests, they have found that they have documentation on Michael Hastings.
About 10 pages worth, I believe.
Yeah.
So on June 18th, 2013, at around 4:20 in the morning, Michael Hastings was involved in a single car accident in the Highland Avenue area of Hollywood in Los Angeles, in which his car was going around the maximum speed of a Mercedes sedan, around 150 to 200 miles an hour. And the car lost control and went directly into a palm tree. Upon the crash, the entire engine and transmission ejected completely from the vehicle. Went around 200 feet down the street. The car burst into the inferno of flames.
It doesn't sound like it.
And he was killed on impact, most likely. It took them, I think, almost a week to finally positively identify the body as Michael Hastings. And there were a few witnesses, and there's one witness accounting of this accident. It was a Hispanic man, I'm forgetting his name, however, we'll inject important parts of the interview into this video. However, the most interesting aspect of this entire interview is the witness mentions that he saw sparks flying out of the car before the car even crashed.
El carro iba brinque y brinque, sacando lumbre en la tanque de la gasolina, bastante chispas. Llegaron, se estampó en la palma, fue cuando saltó la lumbre, pues.
Which is a little suspicious. And with this car crash, they did a toxicology report and they found trace amounts of THC in his system, which they then blamed the entire car accident on him having THC in his system. However, I've never heard of someone high deciding to go 200 miles an hour and crash straight into a palm tree.
Yeah, and to expand on that, I'll pull up the quote right now, but one of his partners and somebody who knew while he was in Afghanistan, I'll pull that up actually. So Farwell, one of his good friends, writes about this. I've deliberately rammed my truck into a stationary object to seek some quietus, and I know the emotional state he was in, and he was not in that state. He says that he's literally driven a car into a wall before, and he knows what PTSD is, and he knows what stress is, and he knows Michael Hastings, and he knows that he wasn't in the state to do this. Like, I don't know if there's any better evidence than a friend who's driven his car into a wall before, and he knows that. He just knows that something's wrong.
Yeah.
He says he did not commit suicide. Mike wasn't planning on dying.
And that goes into some of the reasons why this might have happened. As we mentioned previously, Hastings did have political enemies. And the night before this accident, Michael Hastings contacted an attorney at WikiLeaks, and he contacted this attorney claiming that he felt his life was in danger. He did not feel safe. He knew he was under investigation by the FBI, and he was working in a really big story, and he needed to lay low for a while.
Well, we won't really know the exact details of the story that Hastings was working on before his untimely death. His wife, Elise Jordan, claims that the reporter was working on an expose on the then CIA director, John Brennan. And, I mean, you know what the CIA does to people they don't like. It's a little suspicious that, I mean, I don't think his wife would lie about something like that. Her husband's dying work. It's...
Yeah, the CIA has overthrown entire governments for much less.
Yeah. So, something very interesting that WikiLeaks actually found, we'll put some of these up on the screen, some of these documents. Stratfor, it's President Fred Burton. Stratfor, if you don't know them, they're a CIA contractor. They provide intelligence for, I mean, you could sign up. It's only $350 a year, but I'm sure gets a little more expensive if you're working for a contractor. But the president of Stratfor, Fred Burton, he had these leaked emails talking about the CIA leader, Brennan, was in charge of this crackdown on journalists, investigative journalists. There are many journalists who were being investigated by the FBI, CIA. I think to expand, I just have pulled my notes up, and I found that Stratfor actually, they confirmed that they knew Hastings was working on an expose on the CIA, and they wouldn't comment on the emails that WikiLeaks leaked, but these emails discuss their president, Stratfor's president, Fred Burton, knowing that the head of the CIA, Brennan, was in charge, and that there actually was a campaign to crack down on investigative journalists who were exposing the things that the deep state and the government didn't want us to know about.
Yeah. And another interesting thing that kind of coincides with this is right from the start, this was very, very, very fishy. A lot of people were questioning the reality of this accident, mainly friends of Hastings, colleagues of Hastings, because they realized he was digging deep. They knew he was digging deep. He told them in the days before his death, I'm working on a big story right now. I'm really worried for my life. I believe that I'm being watched. And that coinciding with him dying in a single car accident at 4 a.m, going the top speed his car can go, brought some red flags up. And so I don't remember who it was that requested the FOIA documents, but there were multiple people who requested FOIA documents of what the FBI had on Hastings. However, eventually they got the FOIA. It was Jeff Light. Jeff Light is a DC-based attorney who's the first person that requested the FOIA documents, and eventually they were released. And it's about 10 pages.
Heavily redacted.
Heavily redacted. It goes into a couple snippets of Hastings' work, and it goes into their analysis of Hastings and the information they collected on him. And about 10% you can read, and the rest of it is just giant white boxes covering the rest of the text. So it's absolutely nothing of value you can get out of this paper. It's pretty much them saying, here you go, you can read absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so, I mean, this lawyer, Jeff Light, who does a lot of FOIA requests, he said that it was particularly odd that they memorialized this reporting by filing it and classifying it as secret before it was FOIA requested. He says that's not common, and I guess he doesn't say that. But, so the thing, though, that Jeff Light says is most interesting is that these FBI documents memorialize a blog entry. Like, why would they have a blog? And the interesting about that is that it's not just a blog entry. It's a comment from Greg Farwell. Greg Farwell is Matthew Farwell's father. Matthew Farwell contributed to this report, the expose, on Umar Crystal. And let's see. And so this comment says, my son, Matthew, had gathered information for 3 years and did the reporting on the RS story. he introduced Michael Hastings to the Bergdahls, and they interviewed the family several months ago. It's pretty crazy that the FBI is just, they're kind of just like stalking this guy. They're kind of just tracking everything he's doing, and everyone he works with is under investigation. That doesn't seem like a country that has a free press. To kind of expand more on this Bergdahl incident, both Michael Hastings and his reporting partner, Matt Farwell, interviewed the Bergdahl family. And this source that I'm reading from, the reporter talks about how she was actually able to listen to these recordings, and she says just how in-depth and crazy the extent of what this family has gone through. She talks about how the material Michael couldn't fit into a single profile, like when Bergdahl's father Bob laments the U.S. government's decision to make freeing Raymond Davis from Pakistan a priority, and this is Bergdahl's father talking. So you're a CIA Blackwater mercenary. You get the red carpet extraction. But if you're just a grunt who happens to be the victim of war, I think worst case scenario, he's a psychological casualty. Thank God he didn't commit suicide. And you'll see in a little bit how this is connected to the FBI actually was interested in the comments that that Farwell's father had on a blog post. Like, why would they be interested in the father of his partner? It's just crazy how in depth they followed him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this wasn't just a general point of interest, because you wouldn't be able to find close connections of his partner's family members unless you were really looking into him and doing serious research.
And throughout all of this, the FBI still maintains that they never were investigating Michael Hastings, which is...
Despite the fact that they had 10 pages of documents on him.
They weren't investigating him. So these FOIA request papers revealed that the FBI still considers Hastings' work highly sensitive. And funny enough, even the title of the case file has been withheld under a FOIA exemption. Like, you can't know the title, which is telling. What does the title say?
It's truly insane. This whole thing is just they're hiding in plain sight, and this kind of makes you think, man, if they got away with it being this lazy, what else had they done that they were successful at doing?
So we might look a little crazy here, and I mean, I don't know. I think we're pretty smart, but this isn't just cuckoos and InfoWars fans who believe that this happened. Richard Clark, the counterterrorism chief under both Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, told the Huffington Post that Hastings' crash looked consistent with a car cyber attack. And he goes into more detail talking about how recent research shows how easy it is to hack a car. We'll link some videos. We'll cut some videos in here showing how it's very easy to hack into a car. These systems aren't designed for security.
No.
They're designed for features and to sell cars. It's pretty crazy how these machines, big barreling machines you're driving, can be taken over by, I mean, just
someone on a computer.
Normal hacker. You don't even need to be the CIA to hack these cars.
Now, WikiLeaks claims the government was working on hacking cars too. The CIA was looking at infecting the vehicle control system used by modern cars and trucks. The purpose of such control is not specified. The new leaked documents, quoting a meeting of the CIA's Embedded Devices branch. Potential mission areas include vehicle systems.
Okay. This will get you kind of nervous, maybe? Hackers able to take control of a Jeep while it is moving. Look at this.
Below a certain speed, they can control the Jeep's steering as long as it's in reverse, pop its locks, mess with the speedometer, and, of course, disable the brakes.
Okay, hold on tight. Hold on.
Oh, he's not getting that.
Like, of course, the CIA has the ability to hack these cars. And to quote him, you can do some really highly destructive things now through hacking a car, and it's not that hard. And also, he discusses how I think whoever did it would probably get away with it. I mean, there's no evidence left. One of the witnesses discussed the car exploding multiple times. What is that?
He said that the body in the car after they put out the fire, he couldn't even recognize where the body was. He could really only tell where the head was, because the head was kind of leaned forward. The rest of the body just kind of melted into the rest of whatever hunks of metal were even left of the car.
Like, I'm sure you've all seen like car accidents on the side of the road. Cars on fire on the freeway. I've never seen a car that looks quite like this video.
It was truly an inferno. The entire car, front to back, was absolutely engulfed in flames. And it's, just completely inconsistent with anything based in reality. I mean, he was driving a brand new, at the time, Mercedes-Benz C250. Mercedes-Benz is at the forefront of car safety. It is really hard nowadays to make a car catch on fire. I mean, you have to put legitimate effort into it to make a car accident that severe to where the car's going to catch on fire, let alone explode.
Yep. So I think something big that we have to discuss is the paranoia that Hastings had in the days and weeks prior to this accident. LA Weekly interviewed his neighbor, Jordana Thigpen, who said Hastings was convinced that he was a target of surveillance after reading about the Department of Justice's seizure of AP phone records. And he became very wary at the same time when Edward Snowden's NSA documents came out.
And so in the state of paranoia, Hastings believed that there were helicopters that were following him and that were tracking him and that were taping him, things like that. And his neighbor, Jordana, even said that the helicopters in that area were usually flying a lot lower and a lot closer to residential neighborhoods than they were previously. And again, in a state of paranoia, you can, completely playing devil's advocate, in a state of paranoia, anything can become suspicious. Anything can look like something that it really isn't. And so, in that regard, that's not great evidence, but he felt like he was being tracked. He felt like he was being traced. He reached out to WikiLeaks attorneys. He told his friends and family, I'm worried something's happening because of the significance of what I'm researching and planning on releasing. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and I think Hastings, he wasn't a liar. He was a trustworthy guy who put his life on the line in war zones in Afghanistan to, like, I mean, he eventually paid the price for his reporting with his life, but he was a trustworthy guy. He almost died so he could report on the struggles of our soldiers abroad and at home. And he said that he was certain they were tracking him. I mean, it's like, I think it's pretty trustworthy. I mean, listen to Alex Jones. I think we can pull up a clip, but there are documented instances of the CIA and even your local police using helicopters with FLIR cameras, thermal imaging cameras, to just at will to look for random crimes, maybe grow houses, whatever.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
I was just kind of curious if it's true that the police can have laser or infrared beams, if you want to call it, and they can project those into your house to basically.
Yeah, the Austin Police Department's last time I heard has 20 units with infrared. If you have enough of a heat source in your house, it'll pick up the heat source and show a signature. It's called FLIR. It's infrared or heat signature, and we didn't play all of the cut from the Lear News Hour, but it says yes, black helicopters are being used for surveillance of the public by sheriff's departments and police departments around the country.
And they did find, what's interesting is they found that using thermal or infrared cameras that can look straight through walls and see what you're doing as not an invasion of privacy, because while it is looking into your private home, it is from a public street, and therefore it's completely acceptable.
So, after weeks of this paranoia that he's being watched, and there's actually a quote, I'll pull that up, about how LAPD officers actually knocked at his front door. He didn't answer. He set up a meeting with his trusted friend and source, Matt Farwell, and he was going to relay whatever information he had but this meeting never happened. He died before this meeting occurred. So I think I'm going to wrap things up now and just kind of discuss the totality of the case and just why we believe that Michael Hastings, why this wasn't an accident, why this wasn't just an accident. Just when you look at every detail, all the enemies that he made, from Hillary Clinton to McChrystal to the CIA to the military, Obama, put him in a very tough situation. You're a new president and you're in a war and you have to fire your general. I need to look up exactly that. Just hasn't happened since the Korean War. Actually, I forget who was the general that was fired, but it literally hasn't happened since the Korean War. When you look at that, when you look at the things he was working on, he moved from New York to Los Angeles. He left his wife in New York to work on this. You don't do that for no reason.
Yeah.
You're doing that so he's a passionate person, and he maybe didn't know or didn't care about dying for what he believed in, for the truth. And
it's damn sure that at the peak of your career, when you're on the forefront of what you think is the biggest story of your entire career at that point in time, you definitely don't kill yourself. That's really the thing that comes down to is for people to even consider this as suicide is absolutely ridiculous. Just with all the enemies Jason mentioned that he had made, all the things he was working on, everything going on in his life, the success he was seeing, only for him to kill himself right after moving to Los Angeles, it's just it's hard to believe, to say it softly.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if we'll include this part. That was very good, but I think that this has been memory hold. I think that either just as a result of information overload or a effort by these forces, by the CIA, to make this information. Basically, when's the last time you heard of Michael Hastings? Have you ever heard of Michael Hastings? I think that if we spread this information far and wide, and if you tell your friends and family about this case, and you look into it for yourself, we'll put links in the description. We can really change some minds, and we can really spread the truth and kind of escape the deep state, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
We need to do an entire episode on the whole concept of memory holding. That would be really good.
That's true.
Try and bring up every single story that's been memory hold since 2016, which would probably be like an hour-long episode.
Yep.
All right, so thank you everyone for watching another episode of InfoDev. Really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. It's really overwhelming seeing how the channel has exploded, how many views we're getting, all the great comments.
Thank you guys so much.
It's really cool to see how much people are enjoying this. I was always worried that this is going to be one of those things where it's interesting, you have free time, you'll watch it, and nothing more than that. But to see people genuinely interested by this and being excited by the work we're doing is really, really fulfilling, and it's really helping inspire us to keep working on this stuff. So huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting us this far.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Your support really helps me carry this 25-pound camera with about 20 pounds of batteries and tape that runs out, in our case right now, every 10 minutes. It really helps us continue the hard work, the very hard work, and we appreciate all of your guys' support and very, very nice comments. Thank you guys.
And watching our videos and just liking, just commenting, just interacting with us, having a conversation is more than enough support. I mean, that's more than enough to fulfill my day. If you want to support us even more, feel free to buy a patch, feel free to buy a shirt. It's just a way to give us that little extra boost, paying for gas money going out to the desert or any of our future endeavors. We've had a lot of people ask us about opening up a Patreon. which at first we did. It's been inactive since because Patreon is incentivizing paywalling content, which since day one I've said I do not want to do. I want all this to be as widespread as possible because our goal of this isn't to make money. Our goal of this is to try and spread information we think is deserving of being spread. We're not at the point in the how the YouTube partnership works to monetize our videos yet. Eventually, I think we are going to start putting ads on our videos because it's just a passive way to help us spread the radius in which we can go to search things, and maybe eventually put like one of those tip buttons on our account. But for the people who've been asking, we're not going to do a Patreon. We're not going to do some sort of donation-based monthly thing where we paywall content. That's not who we are. If you want to support us, just buy a shirt. If you really, really want to support us, DM our Twitter page and we could figure something out. But with that, I think that wraps up this episode. So thank you all.
Thank you guys.